Superman Legacy. Casting news. Mr. Terrific, Hawkgirl, Green Lantern. And not only that, but we got, what's his name? Metamorpho. Metamorpho also. Let's take a look. Let me pull this up here. Superman Legacy announces casting for 4 major characters. And there's controversy surrounding this. Like, why? Why? I don't understand it. People are ridiculous. People are absolutely ridiculous. Thank you, Triton. I figured you had some thoughts, Triton. I figured you had some thoughts. All right. So people are freaking out. But it seems like anytime James Gunn breathes, people want to freak out in any way, shape, or form. And it's getting ridiculous, in my opinion. But here we go. Hawkgirl will be played by Dora the Explorer, Isabella Merced, or I can't say names. So she'll be playing Hawkgirl. She's 22 years old. I will say, because, everybody's just kind of going off this whole Dora thing. I will say, I watched the Dora movie. I thought it was good. I thought she did fantastic in it. I think she's going to do well as Hawkgirl. I am curious if what route they're going to go with Hawkgirl. Are they going to go the route of being, reborn, and kind of the idea of what is it called? With the Egypt and that backstory. Are they going to go with Thanagarian as being a planet, that kind of stuff? So I'm curious on how they're going to utilize her. But heck, I am all for it. We got Edie Gathagi. I can't remember. I'm terrible at names. But he's going to be playing Mr. Terrific. Now, he was in X-Men First Class, as pictured right here. He was a character that can't die, but died in X-Men First Class, which is annoying to me. But he will be playing Mr. Terrific, who's one of, if not the smartest man in the DC in the DC comic series or comic books. So I'm excited for this. I am excited for this. I think we're going to get these characters brought into the DCU. So down the line, they're there. They're going to be able to be used. This isn't necessarily going to be a huge ensemble. This is going to be a Superman film, but you need to make sure that you establish that there are metahumans, that there are superpowered beings that are already running around and protecting the planet. We also got Nathan Fillion. This is the one that a lot of people are not happy with. Nathan Fillion will be playing Green Lantern Guy Gardner in Superman Legacy. I think he fits the role really, really well. I do, minus not having red hair, but you can get past that. But I think he fits the role great. A little older than I would think Guy Gardner to be, because he was... I don't think that they should be using somebody, but I take that back. I won't say he's too old, but the perception of his age is what is really hurting his casting, for sure. Anthony Kerrigan will play Metamorpho, the Element Man, in Superman Legacy. So... This is a hero from 1960s, Metamorpho. He sports a very weird design. I'm kind of reading this from here in all the comics, and has been around since 1965. His name is Rex Mason, a soldier of fortune. He was cursed by the Orb of Ra in the Egyptian tomb and gained the ability to shapeshift and change his body into any element or combination of elements. Metamorpho had his own series in the 60s, which spawned the groovy vinyl record with a catchy theme song. Over the years, he's been a member of teams like the Justice League, Batman's Outsiders, the Doom Patrol, and most recently, the Terrifics, Mr. Terrific's own team. Maybe that's what they're doing, people. Maybe they're doing the Terrifics. Could be interesting. But those are the big casting news. So, we got Corn Sweat as Superman. We got Brosnahan as Lois Lane. And then we have these people in their roles. But why are people angry? I think, Triton, you may have something to say about this. Snyder got flack for introducing Batman and Wonder Woman and teasing Flash, Aquaman, and Cyborg and BVS. Meanwhile, Gunn is just shoving half a dozen characters in the legacy and no one is complaining. Well, first off, Triton, there are many people complaining. Many people complaining. But let's look at this logically for a second, Triton, okay? Because I want to explain something. A lot of people have forgotten what was going on in 2015, 2016 on the build up to Batman vs. Superman. A lot of people don't realize or don't remember that there was massive hype. Fans were excited. Where the people that weren't excited were the people who were not into Snyder's, the way that he did films. They weren't a big fan of Man of Steel. Maybe they didn't like Ben Affleck being cast as Batman. So those were the people who were not excited. On the build-up to BVS, we knew that we were going to see Aquaman in it. We knew that Wonder Woman was going to be there. We knew Batman. We knew Superman. So on the build-up, people weren't sitting there saying, they're rushing. There's too many people. Yes, there are people saying they're rushing. There were. But for different reasons. They were saying they're rushing. They're trying to catch up to Marvel. That's what they were saying then. They weren't saying they're rushing. They're putting too many characters in there and it's not going to work. And even after the movie came out, that wasn't the complaint. It wasn't. The complaint for BVS was the use of the characters. People loved Batman. Batman worked in it. People liked Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman worked in it. Where people were a little upset is how they utilized and how they introduced Aquaman and Flash and Cyborg. They felt that it didn't need to be done that way. They wanted to have it Marvelized. They wanted things to be like Marvel in 2015, 2016. And that was an issue back then. Again, I kind of just talked about it a little bit ago, how audience, they change over time. The way they view films, the way they view stories, the way they view things, their opinions will change. That's not to say that what happens here in Superman Legacy is going to be better. It could be worse. It could not work. It could be overstuffed. But the one thing that James Gunn is able to do is he's able to have an ensemble cast. He's able to utilize an ensemble cast very well and not lose focus of the story. He's done that a handful of times now. And again, I don't think this movie is going to be an ensemble film. I believe him when he says, this is Superman and Lois's film. I believe him. But he's going to establish the world. We know in Man of Steel, when Superman was revealed in Man of Steel, it was shock and awe to the world because there were no metahumans. Nobody knew of metahumans back then, oddly enough. Suicide Squad kind of ruined that take. But the world was like, whoa, what is this thing? What is this being? They weren't saying, oh, let's call up this person. Let's call up this person to go fix that. No, they were, so when you get to BVS and then all of a sudden, boom, you go from a movie that didn't have any established metahumans in it, didn't have any established backlore to a larger DC universe, to a movie that's just like, oh, they're here, we just didn't want to talk about them. That's where people got upset. It didn't work for people. That's the business. That's, people either buy it or they don't buy it. It worked for me. Triton, it works for you. Lawrence is saying here, BVS was just boring to me. He goes, I think the extra superhero is just there for the fight. I don't even think that, Lawrence. I don't think they're going to be in there for the fight. I mean, maybe they show up for the fight, but I don't know. I don't know. Superman Legacy is kind of going to be like Superman and Lois. Maybe. I don't think it's gonna be like Superman and Lois that like you're thinking. I think it's gonna be establishing the type of relationship that Clark and Lois have, the type of relationship Superman has with other heroes, with the world, and gonna build from there. That's what I think it's gonna be more like. Triton says, I'm aware the hypocrisy is ridiculous. I'm sorry, I don't see the hypocrisy there. I don't. Because nobody was saying that until they saw the movie, because they were giving it a chance. They wanted to see how these characters would show up and how they would be utilized and how things would play out in the movie. Again, the people who were saying they're rushing it were the people who were big Marvel fans and saying, oh, look, they're just trying to catch up to Marvel. You can't say that here. They're not rushing it to catch up to Marvel. They're not rushing it to just have it. It seems like James Gunn has a plan, has story ideas. And I think, again, I'm not saying that you have to see Superman Legacy, not saying anybody has to see any movie, but to properly criticize, to properly sit there and say, oh, this is the same thing, or it's hypocrisy, or it's people are ridiculous, you have to see the movie. And we have to see the reactions at that point. Because I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to see other heroes cast for this film. Same thing's going to happen for Brave and the Bold. Same thing's going to happen for the Green Lantern show. There's going to be multiple characters in all of these things. Because that's what the people want. That's what is going to get people in seats. That's what's going to get people to put their eyes on the screen. Who's going to pop up next? And it's not going to be like a, oh, who's going to, well, I'm going to see who pops up next. You're going to go and see for the adventure and the story. And then you're like, I wonder if, oh man, look, it's Condiment King. Yeah, I don't know, I'm just pulling names out of my ass. It's Onomatopoeia. That's one character I would love to see in live action. But, you know, you're going to see more heroes, more villains popping up than we've ever seen in Marvel or in DC, in the DCU prior. And again, it's all about how it's executed and how they're utilized. That is the big thing. Justice League Unlimited style. Yes, that is a great example. I love that you say that, Lawrence, because that is a good example of it. You go watch Justice League Unlimited, and up in the watchtower, you have what, like 200 superheroes up there, and they're just there. 90% of them aren't even talked about in most of the episodes. They're just in the background, and you'll see, you know, Red Tornado. You'll see, I don't know, Mr. Terrific in the background. You'll see these characters back there, but not necessarily being used. If this is a world that's already established with heroes within, let's just say, let's say Metamorpho lives in Metropolis, and there's an attack on Metropolis. Sure, Superman's going to show up, but you know who else is going to show up? Metamorpho. That makes sense. That's how that works. If you have heroes living in the same vicinity and there's an attack, all the heroes are going to show up, unless you're Batman. And you know, well, I don't need to show up. Superman's got this. Or if it's Gotham and he says, nope, this is my territory, everybody else stay the hell out. That's pretty much it. And I think that's how it's going to work. I think that there's going to be something that happens that all these characters are going to be brought together for a short scene, maybe two. And they're going to establish that there's a Green Lantern. You're going to establish that there's a Thanagarian. Mr. Terrific could be, you know, maybe he's the one talking about putting together the Watchtower. Maybe we're going to get the Watchtower. Who knows? But regardless, there's no hypocrisy here. There's no reason to sit there and say, oh, well, you know, people are just saying this. People are just, you know, excited because it's not Snyder, or people are being, hypocritical because they didn't like this in 2016. Again, it's different circumstances, different situations. The audience looks at superhero genre differently than they did in 2015, 2016. I just talked about this on Twitter the other day. People sit there and they're trying to say, people are moving the goalposts when it comes to a successful film. BVS was supposed to make $1 billion, but James Gunn's movie, that's going to have to make $2 billion with all the characters. It's like, no, you're not understanding the time frame. In 2016, the superhero genre was at its peak. It truly was at its peak in 2016. You almost couldn't miss with a superhero film. And I'm not saying that BVS was a failure, that it flopped. It did not. Financially, it was successful. But when you have a movie that touts Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, the expectation is $1 billion. It did not hit that $1 billion. It didn't hit that $1 billion at the peak of the superhero genre in the film industry with Superman and Batman. So there was a reason for that. What was the reason? Well, critically and fan-wise, it wasn't received well. And there you have it. Sure made over $100 million, still financially successful, but the expectation was $1 billion. Today, in 2023, 2024, the expectation can't be $1 billion. The expectation can't really even be $800 million because the superhero genre is on the decline. And just like that, you also have to take a look at, okay, how are fans looking at the superhero genre now? They want different types of stories. Zack Snyder, in my opinion, Zack Snyder was just too soon. If they would have waited until 2019 to start Zack Snyder's arc, I think it would have been fine. But I think he was just too soon. I do. I think that's a big reason for the issues. Lawrence says they need to stop putting all the big in 1 month together. I don't know what you mean, Lawrence. I don't know what you mean. I don't know. I'm excited about Superman Legacy. I think again, you said earlier, Lawrence, James Gunn is cooking. This is going to be a fun movie. At the very least, it's going to be a fun movie because that's what James Gunn does. He makes fun films.